They were the most advanced ships ever sent into the Arctic. They carried the best technology of their time, experienced officers, and a crew trained for years of polar exploration. And yet, they vanished. In 1845, 2 Royal Navy ships left England with a single objective: to finally conquer the Northwest Passage, a sea route through the Arctic that could redefine global trade and secure Britain's dominance on the world stage. The ships were HMS Erebus and HMS Terror. They were not ordinary vessels. Both had already survived Antarctic expeditions. Both had been reinforced with iron plating to withstand crushing ice. Both were equipped with steam engines, a cutting-edge hybrid between sail and mechanical power. Nothing about this mission suggested failure. Nothing suggested disaster. And that is exactly what makes what happened next so disturbing. The expedition was commanded by Sir John Franklin, a respected naval officer and veteran of Arctic travel. The crew consisted of 129 men, officers, sailors, engineers, all carefully selected. They carried enough food for at least 3 years. Tinned provisions, preserved meats, flour, tea, lemon juice to prevent scurvy. They even had a small onboard library and a hand organ for morale. This was not a reckless journey. It was a calculated one. The last time Europeans saw the expedition was in July 1845, when whaling ships encountered Erebus and Terror in Baffin Bay. The crews were calm. The ships were in perfect condition. Then they sailed west, into the Arctic maze. And after that, silence. For 2 full years nothing was heard. No messages. No sightings. No wreckage. At first this wasn't alarming. Arctic expeditions often disappeared from communication for long periods. But as years passed, concern turned into dread. By 1848, search missions were launched. What they would eventually uncover was not a clear story, but fragments, broken clues, contradictory evidence, and a trail that seemed to dissolve into ice. The first major clue came years later, a single written record found on King William Island. It was a note placed inside a cairn. The first entry, dated May 1847, was calm and optimistic. It stated that the ships had been trapped in ice since September 1846, but that all were well. Then came the second entry. Scrawled around the margins, added in April 1848. Sir John Franklin was dead. 24 men had already died. The ships had been abandoned. The remaining 105 survivors planned to march south, across one of the most hostile environments on Earth. And then the record ends. No explanation of how Franklin died. No cause of the other deaths. No details of what forced them to abandon ships still stocked with supplies. Just silence. Search expeditions began to uncover physical evidence. Skeletons scattered across the ice. Boots filled with bones. Human remains showing cut marks, signs of desperate measures. For over a century rumors swirled. Cannibalism. Madness. Poisoning. Mutiny. The Arctic had swallowed the truth, or so it seemed. In the 21st century, modern technology finally located the ships. HMS Erebus was discovered in 2014. HMS Terror followed in 2016. They were astonishingly well preserved, resting silently beneath the icy waters. And yet, even with the ships found, the core mystery remains unresolved. Why did such a prepared expedition collapse so completely? What happened to the men between the abandonment of the ships and their final deaths? And why did no one survive, not even a single witness? To answer that, we turn to the theories. The most widely accepted explanation today is a perfect storm of human vulnerability and environmental cruelty. The ships became trapped in pack ice for far longer than anticipated. As months turned into years, supplies dwindled, not in quantity but in quality. The tinned food, once believed to be a marvel, was poorly sealed with lead solder. This caused widespread lead poisoning. Symptoms include confusion, impaired judgment, paranoia, weakness, and hallucinations. Suddenly, the strange decisions make sense. Why abandon ships that still had food? Why march south instead of waiting for thaw? Why fragment into smaller groups? Add to this scurvy, malnutrition, extreme cold, and psychological collapse from endless darkness. Men grew weaker. Leadership fractured. Hope evaporated. Cannibalism was not a choice, it was a final survival reflex. In this theory, there is no single dramatic event. No monster. No hidden force. Just a slow, grinding breakdown of body and mind under conditions no human system was designed to endure. It is tragic. It is brutal. And it is terrifying precisely because it is believable. But there are cracks in that explanation. Why did Franklin die so early while others survived longer? Why do Inuit oral histories describe men behaving erratically, abandoning supplies, walking aimlessly, making decisions that defy survival logic? Some historians suggest a deeper psychological collapse. Not just sickness but despair. The Arctic is not merely cold. It is disorienting. Months of darkness. Endless white horizons. Silence so complete it feels unreal. Under such conditions, the human mind can fracture. Some may have believed rescue was impossible. Others may have lost trust in command. Groups may have split, each convinced their path was the correct one. This theory does not deny poisoning or starvation. It suggests something more subtle. That the Arctic didn't kill them directly. It broke them. And once cohesion was lost, survival became impossible. And then there is the theory no one can fully dismiss, and no one can fully explain. Why do some Inuit accounts describe men who did not act like men anymore? Why were certain camps abandoned suddenly with supplies left behind? Why does the final fate of some crew members remain completely untraceable? The Arctic is vast, but it is also consistent. And yet, multiple expeditions, across decades, would later experience eerily similar patterns in the same region. Trapped ships, sudden abandonment, irrational choices, total disappearance. So here is the question. Was the Arctic simply an unforgiving environment? Or was there something about this route, this region, that repeatedly pushed humans past a threshold we still don't understand? A psychological line? An environmental anomaly? Or something else entirely? The ships are silent. The ice keeps its secrets. And perhaps the final answer isn't written in logs or bones, but in how far humans can go before reason itself breaks. So now the question turns to you. What do you think happened to the men of HMS Erebus and HMS Terror? And as we move forward, remember this. They were only the beginning. Because after Franklin vanished, others followed his shadow into the same frozen maze. The silence left behind by the Erebus and the Terror did not end the story of the Northwest Passage. If anything, it poisoned it. Their disappearance turned the Arctic into an obsession, a white scar on the map that Britain could not ignore. And so, only a few years later, another ship followed the same frozen whisper north. Another crew believed they could succeed where Franklin failed. Another captain trusted charts, discipline, and reason against a place that had already proven it cared for none of those things. This is where the shadow deepens. Because the HMS Investigator did not simply vanish. It survived long enough to leave behind something far more unsettling. When the Investigator entered the Arctic in 1850 under the command of Robert McClure, its mission was both bold and desperate. Approach the Northwest Passage from the west, through the Bering Strait, and complete what Franklin never could. On paper, it was a logical maneuver. The ship was reinforced, the crew experienced, the Empire watching closely. The Arctic, once again, was underestimated. At first, progress seemed promising. The Investigator pushed farther than many thought possible, carving through channels that appeared navigable, mapping coastlines that had never been recorded. McClure believed he was on the edge of history. But the Arctic does not announce when it has decided you will go no further. Ice closed in slowly, almost politely. Then completely. By the winter of 1851, the Investigator was locked in place near Banks Island. Unlike Franklin's ships, which drifted helplessly, McClure's vessel was pinned like an insect in amber. The crew waited, believing the thaw would come. It didn't. Another winter followed. And then another. What happened next is not a disappearance. It is something colder. The men did not panic. They did not mutiny. They followed orders. They rationed food, hunted when they could, repaired what little the ice allowed. But the Arctic worked on them quietly. Scurvy crept in. Frostbite claimed fingers, toes, strength. Morale thinned with the daylight. And then the truth became unavoidable. the Investigator would never move again. In 1853, after nearly 3 years imprisoned in the ice, McClure made the decision that sealed the ship's fate. The crew abandoned her. They left behind a vessel still standing, still intact, still filled with supplies, a ghost ship frozen in time. And this is where the story stops being merely historical and becomes deeply disturbing. Because the men survived. They were eventually rescued by other search expeditions, not through triumph but through chance. McClure was hailed as a hero for technically completing the Northwest Passage on foot and ice, becoming the first to traverse it, ship or not. Medals were awarded. The Empire declared success. But the Investigator was left behind. And no one ever returned for her. Years later, Inuit accounts spoke of a ship still standing, its masts upright, its hull groaning beneath the pressure of the ice. A British vessel, abandoned but not destroyed. A place where time stopped. When modern explorers finally located the wreck in the 21st century, it confirmed something unsettling. The ship had not been crushed immediately. It had endured. It waited. Which leads to the first theory. The realistic one. The HMS Investigator was not defeated by madness, monsters, or mystery, but by the slow mathematical certainty of the Arctic. The ice cycles were abnormal. Climate conditions during that decade were among the harshest of the Little Ice Age. The ship was caught in a dead zone where thaw never reached. The crew did exactly what they were trained to do. They survived because they left. The ship remained because it could not be saved. No grand horror. No hidden truth. Just a brutal environment that grinds everything down eventually. And yet, that explanation doesn't fully sit right. Because unlike Franklin's men, McClure's crew did not descend into chaos. They did not fragment into desperate marches with no return. They followed protocol. They left records. They were rescued. And still, something feels wrong about what they chose to abandon. The Investigator was stocked. It was structurally sound. It had proven it could survive years in the ice. Other ships in other expeditions were reclaimed, refitted, even sailed again after overwintering. But this one was written off completely. What? Which brings us to the second theory, the one that lingers. Some historians suggest that the decision to abandon the Investigator was not only about ice or survival, but about what prolonged isolation had done to the crew's understanding of risk. The Arctic had already claimed Franklin. It had swallowed 2 ships without explanation. By the time McClure realized he was trapped in the same region, the same cursed corridor of ice, the psychological weight of that knowledge mattered as much as the cold itself. The men were not fleeing starvation. They were fleeing the idea that staying any longer meant becoming part of the Arctic's pattern. Ship after ship entered the Northwest Passage with confidence and discipline, and emerged broken, abandoned, or erased. The Investigator represented something terrifying. Proof that even when you survive, the Arctic decides what remains. The crew left not because the ship was dead, but because it felt claimed. And that raises an uncomfortable question. If the ice had loosened the following year, would anyone have gone back? Or did the Arctic already own her? The HMS Investigator still rests where it was left, preserved in darkness, her interior sealed by cold so absolute it halts decay. Tools lie where hands drop them. The ship exists in a state between failure and survival, neither lost like Franklin's vessels, nor victorious like the narratives claim. It is a reminder that not all expeditions vanish violently. Some are simply abandoned by choice. And as we move deeper into this Arctic trail, toward ships that were never recovered, crews that left no survivors, and records that end mid-sentence, one question becomes impossible to ignore. Were these expeditions all victims of the same unforgiving environment? Or did the Northwest Passage teach its lessons one ship at a time, until even the survivors knew when to walk away? And if you had been there, staring at a ship that might last another winter, knowing what happened to the men who stayed too long, would you have boarded her again? Or would you have left her to the ice, and never looked back? The story of HMS Resolute does not begin with disappearance, but with abandonment, a quiet, unsettling difference that makes its fate no less disturbing. In 1852, HMS Resolute was sent into the Arctic as part of the massive effort to uncover the fate of Sir John Franklin's lost expedition. By then, the Arctic was no longer unknown territory. British crews had maps, experience, and caution born from earlier failures. They believed they understood the risks. They were wrong. Resolute entered the Canadian Arctic and, like so many ships before her, became trapped in the ice. At first, this was not considered catastrophic. Crews expected to overwinter, waiting patiently for the ice to release its grip. This had happened before. But months passed and the ice did not move. The cold deepened. Supplies dwindled. Scurvy threatened. Morale deteriorated. In April of 1854, after 2 winters locked in ice, Captain Henry Kellett made a decision that would echo across Arctic history. He ordered the ship abandoned. The crew left Resolute intact. They secured the vessel carefully. They left behind logs, equipment, and personal belongings. They expected the ship to be reclaimed or destroyed by ice. Instead, the Arctic did something no one expected. Years later, HMS Resolute was found drifting, not crushed, not sunken, but alive. She had broken free from the ice on her own. The ship traveled thousands of miles, silently crossing Arctic waters, eventually emerging into the North Atlantic. In 1855, an American whaling vessel encountered her near Baffin Bay. She was still seaworthy, still standing, still carrying the ghosts of those who had walked away. No crew aboard. No explanation for how she survived forces that had destroyed so many others. Resolute was returned to Britain as a symbol of endurance, but her journey raised disturbing questions. Why was this ship spared when others were not? And what truly happened during those final months before abandonment? The first theory is grounded in realism and probability. HMS Resolute was not cursed, haunted, or guided by unseen forces. She survived because of construction, luck, and timing. Her reinforced hull, designed specifically for ice navigation, may have endured pressure better than earlier ships. Subtle shifts in ice patterns could have freed her gradually, without the violent crushing that destroyed vessels like Erebus and Terror. Wind and currents may have carried her safely once she broke loose. As for the crew's decision to abandon ship, it likely came down to survival math. Remaining aboard meant risking death from starvation or disease. Leaving meant at least a chance of rescue. In this view, Resolute is not a mystery, she is a rare success story born from engineering and chance, misinterpreted because it occurred in a place where survival itself feels unnatural. But the second theory refuses to be dismissed so easily. Resolute was not simply abandoned because of ice. Accounts suggest rising fear among the crew. Not panic, but something slower, heavier. The Arctic had already claimed Franklin. It had swallowed Investigator. It had consumed ships that followed every rule. The ice did not just trap vessels, it disoriented men. Magnetic anomalies in the region disrupted compasses. Endless daylight warped sleep cycles. Silence pressed against the mind. Isolation stretched weeks into months with no sign of release. What if the crew of Resolute did not leave because the ship was doomed, but because staying felt wrong? Not dangerous, not hopeless, wrong. What if the Arctic exerts a psychological pressure that forces abandonment before destruction occurs? A slow erosion of certainty. A place that convinces men to walk away from safety, from shelter, from reason itself. Resolute survived. But perhaps her crew sensed that they would not. And when we step back, when we view Erebus, Terror, Investigator, and Resolute together, a pattern begins to emerge. These were not reckless ships. These were not untrained men. They entered the same corridor of ice within the same decade. They faced similar conditions. They recorded similar symptoms. Confusion, sudden illness, erratic decisions, interrupted logs. Some crews vanished completely. Some walked away into nothing. Some ships died violently. One drifted free, untouched. The Arctic does not behave like other environments. It does not simply kill. It waits. It tests. And sometimes it releases, not answers but survivors with no explanations. Was this merely the brutal learning curve of early polar exploration? Or was the Northwest Passage something more than geography, a threshold humans were not meant to cross without consequence? We may never know. The ice preserves bodies, ships, and secrets with equal indifference. And perhaps that is the most unsettling truth of all. If you enjoy deep investigations into unsolved disappearances, lost expeditions, and the dark edges of human exploration, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps keep these stories alive, long after the ice has tried to erase them. And now the question remains with you. What do you think really happened out there?